Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on marriage from a social institution to private relationships by Madison, Bella, and Hadley. Our presentation is on interpretivism. Interpretivism is a philosophical position and research method that analyzes events in society based on the specific value system of the society or culture they occur in. It is the idea that people can theorize or make predictions about things that we cannot observe. Some of the theories that are included into interpretivism are family systems theory, attachment theory, and family stress theory. When combined together, this explains why people act differently depending on which society they grew up in, what their family values were, and what their personal experiences were like. This is a way to study action or event to analyze it through the perspective of values of its culture. This helps explain why families are the way they are. I hope you enjoy our presentation. In the year 1926, the American Sociological Association described family as a unity of interacting personalities, a living, changing, growing thing that can be referred to as a superpersonality. This theory emerged in the 1960s, looking at families as a system. Some of the ideas are pulled from the Parsons structural function theory that was also emerged in the 70s. With this theory, we are able to explain why a lot of the transitions and interactions between family members can become very dysfunctional. This theory also helps to explain how when a family is able to work together and function as a unit, they are so much greater and stronger than as individual parts or people. In most cases, families are self-regulating and can find their own homeostasis, but that is not always the case. One of the most important things that a family can be defined as is communication and the way they communicate with each other through their system. Each family includes family roles. These can be traditional, meaning a parent-child relationship where the parent usually tells the child what to do or how to act. However, in many dysfunctional families, these roles can get replaced. In a dysfunctional family, there are roles such as an enabler, a dependent, a delinquent, an invisible child, or a clown. These roles are usually placed onto a child during their development stages. When families have these dysfunctional roles, it can be really hard for them to find a good balance and work as a system. Another thing that systematic families have is a hierarchy. This is where the power is delegated. The power is not always equal or appropriately distributed. Usually, the power is more given to the parents or the older child, but in not every case, this should be the best solution. In the family systems theory, families also need to have boundaries. These can be open boundaries, random boundaries, or closed boundaries. The ideal boundaries for a healthy, systematic family are clear and flexible. The family members can depend on each other, set clear boundaries, but are always forgiving. When those aren't always clear, things can get messy and become dysfunctional. When the family starts to become dysfunctional, there are things called feedback loops. These feedback loops can be negative, causing the homeostasis to lower and everyone in the family to have issues. Or feedback loops can be positive, and there can be positive responses to behavior, which can higher the homeostasis and create a happy, systematic family that functions well on its own. One of the critiques for the family systems theory is being culturally restrictive and homogeneous. They need to raise their sensitivity to socioeconomic systems, race, sexual identity, and more. A great example of how to explain family systems theory is the movie Incredibles. In this movie, each family member has its own specific power, and they are able to use their powers to defeat the other side, and they each are able to contribute something different to defeat the enemy. They work in a perfect system that maintains homeostasis.
The next theory we are going to talk about is attachment theory. Attachment theory was pioneered by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. This theory states that children have an innate need to form close emotional bonds. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk stated in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, that children will form an attachment to whoever functions as their primary caregiver. He also explains that our caregivers set an example of how we should care for ourselves by the way they care for us. As children, we form a view of ourselves and others that stick with us throughout adulthood. It is theorized that people can either have secure or insecure attachment. The three types of insecure attachment include anxious, avoidant, and disorganized attachment. Attachment theory is important when considering marriage because it explains how we connect with others, especially in relationships. Most modern relationships are classified as individualized marriages, which are built with love, emotional intimacy, communication, and equality as key elements. Since most people choose their own partners, they often seek out other people who are able to communicate and cooperate in a relationship effectively. As we can see from the table, there are the 3 insecure attachment styles have a harder time creating emotional connections and communicating with others. Since these things are so instrumental to marriages that are created with the intention of having emotional intimacy, it could be assumed that marriages with 2 securely attached individuals are more likely to be long-lasting and fulfilling. Looking at the table on the side of the PowerPoint, we can see that secure attachment includes the ability to trust easily and be more attuned to emotions, and the ability to communicate directly. This could lead to cooperative and flexible behavior in relationships, which would be ideal for a lasting marriage. Whereas anxious attachment, which is one of the insecure attachment styles, are sensitive, struggle communicating, and often act out. The other attachment style, avoidant, dismissive, or avoidant, will downplay the importance of relationships and will be self-reliant or independent. And avoidant fearful, which is another way of saying disorganized attachment, are more dependent. They fear rejection, have low self-esteem, and high anxiety within relationships. In summary, the way we attach to our primary caregivers as children directly affects the way we attach to our romantic partners later on in life. This is because our primary caregivers model whether we are worthy or unworthy of love, or others are worthy or unworthy of trust. While not everybody has secure attachment to begin with, it is possible to work towards and potentially earn secure attachment later on in life. Based off of what we know about modern marriage and attachment styles, it can be concluded that in order to have a healthy, lasting marriage, one might consider working towards having a secure attachment style.
Hi everyone, this is the family stress theory within Interpretivism. Before we discuss the topic, one of the first things that I'm going to establish with you is the family ecology and what it means. So it is the family's influence due to their environment, which is quite simple. And the way that this correlates to family stress is because if a family lives in an area with, let's say, high violence rates, we may see that their stressors are more at an all-time peak compared to someone who may be living in a safer area and not have those same stressors that the person in the violence area is living in may have. The stressors vary depending on not only the family situation, but as ecology we described, geographical location as well can be a factor. Family stress, according to the text, is defined as a state of tension that arises when demands test or tax a family's capabilities. So there are multiple types of stressors that can allow for something to be titled as a family stress that does affect the family, which are the loss of a family member, the addition to a family member, ambiguous loss, sudden or unexpected changes, ongoing family conflict, demoralizing events, caring for an ill family member, daily family hassles, and anxiety of children in a culture of fear. It's important to understand that families around the globe face family stressors and may not be able to identify the issues. For example, in the research study done, Carrie Cooper found that mothers' resources, especially their relationship with biological fathers, accounted for most of the association between transitions and parenting stress. So without the information, people may not be aware that their own education and supportive relationships within their lives can be seen as valuable resources for the family, as we discussed in the family management in Module 1. So I think this is a very important research and article to basically get the word out more about the resources that we may have and how we manage them differently from family and culture to culture. So yeah. In order to think about stress and the dynamic it may be playing on a family, they have in the textbook came down to the ABC-X model. The A in the ABC-X model equates to the stressors of the event, which is the demands on the family, and then that interacts with B, and B is the family's ability to cope with said crisis, and this includes the resources and coping strategies that they use, particularly for that certain crisis or stressor. Then we see how B interacts with C, which is the family's appraisal to the stressor, which is the meanings that the family creates to explain the demand of the stressor and what it's going to take to kind of overcome it or adapt to it. And then lastly, after the C stage, it creates the crisis if it does kind of snowball into a larger event or experience, which proceeds to the family understanding the adaptation to the stress and demands and the capabilities that they have to combat it as a whole and as a family, which we can see in the diagram to the right of the slide. The family stress theory is part of the interpretivism theory and paradigm, because of the way that we can theorize or make predictions based on the different observations we have on family to family and how they react to these certain things, and the differences between the resources that each of them have and the locations that they're in, and how they basically move forward with these kinds of stressors. So that's why it's part of the paradigm.